part of that racism could be, I read a book recently called The Arabists, and there was such a romanticizing of the Arab culture by our own State Department, never mind historians. And I wondered if you think that that could have been part of the influence in the degradation of African culture in history, because there was more of a feeling that the Arab culture was further sophisticated.
I think the core problem was not with Arab culture, but with European culture. Towards the end of my research, when I'd written an early draft of this book, and I was in the McGill University Library in Montreal, checking my footnotes, looking at what I have to do before you go to the press, and checking page numbers and publication dates and that kind of trivia. And I found a book, and actually my wife called it to my attention, a book that didn't seem to belong in the stacks of any university library. It was very old. It had a leather-bound cover that was crumbling, and opening I saw was from 1838, and it was all about ancient Africa. It was written by a German. Had been translated into English by Oxford University Press, and it said amazing things about Taharqa. In fact, it just said one sentence, I think, on Taharqa, but it was amazing. It said that Taharqa in 701 BC led an expedition that repelled the Assyrians. Boom! I thought, oh my God, the journalistic response, I've been scooped. And for 5 minutes I was mortified. I thought, God, why have I written this book? It's just, people knew this. This is an old story. And then it occurred to me, my God, this is another incredible story. This story would have been known back in the early 1800s, and then it's become forgotten. How can that be? And so I embarked on another whole round. I spent the next 2 years investigating this other aspect. How did this story get lost? And I found that that German historian's work, his thesis, his remark that the Cushites were responsible, was common in all books written until about 1880. And you find that as early as 1200, there was a French rabbi who around 1200 had the same idea. All these biblical commentators, rabbis, Christians, including John Calvin, say that Taharqa was either wholly or partly responsible for the Assyrian retreat. And you even see Egyptologists, eminent British archaeologists in Egypt and Kush, who come up with the same idea during the Victorian era. And then around 1880, 1881, this comes to a screeching halt. And then that's when you get the idea that archaeologists and historians and biblical commentators start saying, it had to be a plague. It had to be troubles elsewhere in the empire. And so I didn't know much about European history. What is it that happened around 1880 that would have changed this? And of course, it was the conquest, the colonization of Africa. It started around 1881. 7 European powers plunged into Africa and colonized the whole thing over the next 20, 30 years. And it was, when you conquer a place and subjugate it, you have to, you can't allow yourself to admit the value of the culture that you're subjugating. And it's amazing how the academic establishment shared in that belief. Like during the 1890s and 1910s and 1920s. We have these remarkable academics, people like James Henry Breaston, whom I grew up as revering as a great archaeologist. I remember my mother telling me when I was 10 years old, James Henry Breaston is the god of archaeology. He's a University of Chicago archaeologist who founded, he's terrific. He has a book called The History of Egypt, which is still being given to university students. It was published in 1910. Still seen as the definitive book on Egyptian history. And in it, he describes the Cushites as being nobodies, as being rustics in over their head on the world stage. He says they failed miserably in their responsibilities, and under them